Hello, lovelies, and happy Halloween! Welcome back to a new episode of Real Nightmares where we compare the fact to the fiction in your favorite horror media. I'm Katie Adkins, and today, during this spooky holiday season, we're going to talk about mazes and monsters, based on a novel that was based on a true story that contributed to a very real mass hysteria and moral panic. The Satanic Panic, to be exact. Funny thing about a panic, it tends to make folks forget about all logic and reason. Probably why the church, during the 80s, went after a silly little game I enjoy called Dungeons and Dragons. Their goal was to scare the youngsters from role-playing their fantasies. For example, being a celibate cleric who goes on quests of holy righteousness. They have that at home. Or maybe to play a hedonistic orc barbarian. There's a spectrum of character options. They also have that at home. And being a social pariah wasn't enough of a threat, apparently. D&D wasn't exactly for the popular kids back in the day. As if the nerds aren't bullied enough, the church had to get in on it. I guess one of those Christians got mad when their character died and the DM refused to resurrect him. I crack myself up. Mazes and Monsters, made in 1982, is considered to be the reefer madness of Dungeons and Dragons. We meet our youngsters who are about to embark on their grand quest of going to college. The quirky rich boy with an insane bedroom, a talking bird.
Birds can't talk.
And thinks hats are a personality trait. Seriously, this room looks like an insane asylum.
It looks like a hospital!
Do you know how many of my clients would give their eye teeth for a Julia Brockway room like this?
Apparently, eye teeth is another word for canines? I don't know, still a weird scene. We have an aspiring writer looking for her muse and inspiration.
I haven't really lived yet, so how can I write about things I don't know about?
The misunderstood hot guy who just wants to make computer games.
What I really love is to make up games for computers. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do it as a hobby.
And last but not least, Tom Hanks, or Robie. His fun personality fact is that his brother recently went missing. At first, Robie is cautious about joining their game because he's still dealing with the trauma of losing his brother, who came to him in the middle of the night and asked for all of Robbie's money so he could go to New York, and he just gave it to him? I don't know. After that night, his brother became a missing person who was never found. But the fighter in the game is pretty, so he decides what the heck and joins their campaign.
You are entering the secret mazes of the evil Verations. Shall ye enter?
Aye!
Robbie's delusions begin when the dungeon master, JJ, gets the bright idea of having a special game night where they LARP their characters in the local caves, and Robie suffers hallucinations of a monster. It's clear he hasn't processed the trauma of losing his brother, and the game is the catalyst for a psychotic episode.
The most frightening monsters are the ones that exist in our minds.
Bless you all.
Knock it off, Pardu.
He has a dream that night where his brother acts as a D&D NPC, telling him he has to be a holy man and break up with his girlfriend to dedicate himself to a life of celibacy.
I love you and I will always love you, but I just can't touch you anymore.
What's even more insane is apparently this has happened to her before?
I can't believe this is happening. This is exactly like last time. This is deja vu.
She really knows how to pick him, I guess. He continues to have prophetic dreams that feed his delusions, believing if he does what's instructed of him, he can find his missing brother. It's Halloween night and everyone is partying. While all of his friends are busy partying and having a good time and being, typical college students, what they don't know is it's also Robbie's missing brother, Hall's birthday. He's unable to focus on the festivities as he has an important quest calling him to action. He checks his map, leaves it behind, gets dressed, and forgets all of his important belongings. Things like a wallet and, well, it's the 80s, so I guess just a wallet. He wouldn't have a phone or anything. He ends up running away to New York with nothing but his clothing and his pouch of spells on a quest in search of his missing brother.
Where would he go without clothes or his wallet?
Along the way, he stabs a guy, befriends a homeless man.
Perhaps you can help me. I am in search of the Great Hall.
Beats me, pal.
And the 2 towers?
Yeah, I know those.
Oh, and he tries to jump off the Twin Towers believing he can fly. He won't learn for another 20 years that objects flying around the World Trade Center tend to not have smooth landings.
See how there's no windows on the side? And see underneath where there's like a pod thing? What's that, right? Take a look at this wreckage. See how there's no plane parts on the ground there? What does that look like?
A missile.
And honestly, I don't feel too bad about the stabbing part because like those dudes were gonna jump him. It's honestly just self-defense. It's just alarming. He can't remember what happened.
Robbie, are you all right? What happened?
Oh no, I can't remember.
Where are you exactly?
There's blood on my knife.
His friends hunt him down, without the help of the most useless detective played by Hamilton Murray, continuing his legacy of playing characters that are in positions of power who do literally nothing helpful ever.
What do you guys think happened?
One of the players Robbie played with got carried away and killed him.
Well, that's kind of far out.
Mazes and Monsters is a far-out game.
JJ even skips out on wearing a fun hat, so we know it's serious.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the maze controller.
Huh? JJ, what am I doing here?
Robbie's friends bring him home so he can get help, but unfortunately...
Shall we not begin the quest?
Robbie.
His mind never recovers, and he is forever stuck in the fantasy world in his head.
We played the game again. For one last time. It didn't matter that there were no maps, or dice, or no monsters. Hard you saw the monsters. We did not. We saw nothing but the death of hope and the loss of our friend.
It's an interesting concept for a movie, but it honestly fell short for me. I don't think I'll be watching it again. However, I was very surprised to learn that Robbie's story is based off of a real person. James Dallas Egbert III, known as Dallas, was considered to be a young prodigy, a genius mathematician with a knack for computers. He graduated high school in Dayton, Ohio at just 13 years old and started college at Michigan State University at 14 years old. By August of 1979, he was 16 and considered a sophomore in college, but still had the looks of a young boy standing at 5'5" and weighing 130 pounds. On August 15, 1979, he wrote a note that said, "To whom it may concern, should my body be found, I wish it to be cremated," and entered the school's steam maintenance tunnels located below the campus and took quaaludes in attempts to end his life. However, he survived. The next day he woke up, left the tunnels, and went into hiding at a friend's place. However, some people claim to have seen him at Gen Con that week, a tabletop role-playing game convention held at the University of Wisconsin. He didn't own a car or drive at all, so it was suspected that he was still close to campus. It took the school 5 days to tell Dallas's parents that their underage son was missing. By August 22nd, Dallas's parents hired a private investigator, William Deere, and were furious with Michigan State. Anna Egbert, Dallas's mother, blamed herself for pushing him too hard. The weekend before his disappearance, he wanted to go to a friend's bar mitzvah, but Anna told him he needed to stay in and study to keep up his perfect grades. To add insult to injury, he also had excitedly told his mother he got a 3.5 in a computer science course, to which his mother coldly told him it should have been a 4.0. Due to her ruthlessness toward his academics, she blamed herself for what happened to her son. At school, it was well known to students and friends at Michigan State that Dallas identified as bisexual, with not just rumors of his homosexual affairs, but he was also a member of the school's gay activist group called the Gay Council. Yes, you heard that right. The Gay Council. LGBT who? Bring back the Gay Council. Forget the gay agenda. Nah, I want the Gay Council agenda. To make it even better, Dallas was known to call 19-year-old Karen Coleman, who was a very well-known gay council activist, mother. He literally called her and referred to her as mother. I swear, nothing is original. It is all borrowed and reused. Dallas was a very public member of the Gay Council and even gave a speech on the fruits of homosexuality in a social science course. However, his parents were not aware of this and did not know their son was gay and possibly struggling with his identity in a world that doesn't want to accept him for who he is. When private investigator Deere looked at Dallas's dorm room, he found a note he wrote with a couple of depressing poems, and a cork board on the wall decorated with push pins and a strange design. He decided this was a map of some sort that Dallas left behind as a clue. At this point, Deere knew that Dallas loved playing games and was really into Dungeons and Dragons, and he assumed this map was related to those passions. This theory was confirmed when another student came forward. He had been talking about Shmoo's side. Bruce didn't take it very seriously. Then Dallas said he might just find a place anywhere and go there to commit schmuicide. He said he'd leave a map that would give directions to his body, but he didn't think anyone could figure it out. Deere also learned from Dallas's friend at school, Mark McCroskey, that he was also known to use drugs recreationally and steal chemicals from the school's lab and cook PCP in his room. And most people who knew him would describe him as depressed and high all of the time. So between the extreme academic pressure from his family, him coming to terms with his sexuality, his depression, his excessive drug use, cooking PCP in his dorm room, and literally telling people he wants to off himself, how the heck does all of this get blamed on Dungeons and Dragons? Well, after private investigator William Deere learned Dallas loved D&D, LARPed in the school tunnels, left a map as a clue, and found out his character was a wizard class, a class known for its intelligence and not for its physical strength, Deere deduced that Dallas was playing as a fantasy version of himself in the game. It was believed at the time that only people with a higher than average IQ can play the game.
Thanks.
Many students that Deere interviewed were quoted saying, "I'm not smart enough to understand it, the rules are too complicated for me, but he plays it and is obsessed with it."
Kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons theme.
Is this something to do with sex?
Far from it, Jen. No, you see in role-playing, one person is a dungeon master or game master or keeper, battling with a coal monster, or just kicking back in a smelly old tavern with some roguish out.
Moz,
yeah.
I want to stop listening to
I
this.
completely understand.
He felt that Dallas was playing a real-life game with them, acting as his character, and is now living the game out, not just playing it. William Deere actually wrote a book narrating this investigation for his search for Dallas called The Dungeon Master. Throughout the book, Deere tells a first-hand account of tracking down and finding Dallas, believing him to be some sort of real-life dungeon master. Deere didn't have a great understanding of the game and played it once to try to get a feel for it.
Alright, fine, I'll be a dwarf. But my name is Carlos.
Carlos, a dwarf?
Yeah, you got a problem with that, Gorthon?
No.
He personally decided that because he lost himself in the game when he played it, that it must have contributed to Dallas having delusions and being influenced by the game, putting way more blame on the game than the boy's pre-existing issues.
What the hell is this little tea party?
We're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
First of all, gay. Second of all, stupid.
That single game I had played in my motel room provided an inkling of how Dungeons and Dragons could grip a person. I had concentrated so hard on evading dangers, trying to gather fortune, and simply staying alive that for long periods I actually forgot where I was and became a magic user in the perilous maze. My mind pictured the maze. My body hurt after those big rats attacked me.
You've been shot by an arrow.
Ow!
Yeah, that hurts.
When I got up to go to the bathroom, I developed a limp. Very shortly after I began the game, I was no longer in that motel room. I had escaped to another place, another world, another time. Congrats, dude. You've unlocked having an imagination. Has this man ever read a book before? He must have lost his mind when video games came out.
I place it gently over the elf maiden's eyes. I slowly lay her down.
Okay. You both fall back exhausted, but still entwined.
Okay, great. I stroke her hair lovingly and spoon her for the appropriate amount of time before leaving.
How long is that?
He even had the theory Dallas was suffering from some sort of Jekyll and Hyde personality disorder. Dungeons and Dragons could have absorbed him so much that his mind had slipped through the fragile barrier between reality and fantasy, and he no longer existed in the world we inhabit. Okay, dude. Once private investigator Deere learned that Dallas played Dungeons and Dragons, he clung to the theory that the game must be related to his disappearance. It was known that students would occasionally LARP in the school's steam tunnels, so it was assumed Dallas must still be down there, lost or injured. The tunnels beneath the school are very dangerous and very maze-like. It's easy to get lost down there, and it's also very hot, and you could get dehydrated and pass out. At this point, Dungeons and Dragons was sensationalized and reported to be a dangerous game run by a bizarre and secretive cult that players could only join by invitation. Once the media got a hold of this info, it was over. The media went hard into the theory D&D causes mental illness because Deere made sure to keep Dallas's drug use and sexuality hush-hush, so the media never got a hold of that info. So it was really the only thing the media had to say to make the story interesting and sellable. Otherwise, all they had was, a boy went missing and MSU handled it poorly. Deer decided to speak to some of the known D&D LARPers on campus, and everyone was too afraid to speak up because Dallas was an underage boy and no one wanted to incriminate themselves by saying they were with a minor doing drugs or even sleeping with a minor. One thing I think is nice that Deer made a point to say in his book is how he specifies that half of the D&D LARPers and players on MSU campus were women. About half of the population at this school involved in the game were girls. And how he thought that it made sense a lot of women would play because D&D is a mental game and therefore they wouldn't have to physically overcome the male players in order to get ahead. I don't know why the media always insists that D&D was just a game for dorky smart guys back in the 70s and 80s. Dorky women exist too. Dorky women played too. This is dorky women erasure. Why do we always want to erase dorky women from history? Like, for real, we always act like nerdy, dorky women like never existed. They definitely existed. They were definitely there. We just don't put them in the history books or make movies about them. While I don't deny it was a male-dominated space, to say that there was like no women just isn't true. He was missing for several weeks, and while the police searched the tunnels, Dallas took a bus out of town to New Orleans. Once he learned that his parents hired a PI to find him, he called home to give them his location. When Deer first saw Dallas, he was in shock over just how small he was. Deer described him as a waif who looked 7 years old, and it was clear to him whatever Dallas had experienced had crushed him. He was curled up in a ball and trembling on the bed. He had scratches on his face and was crying. He had no belongings with him, just the clothes on his back. As Deer and his associate Lambert escorted Dallas outside the motel, there were 4 big men outside waiting, threatening them that they weren't going to take the boy. Deer pulled his gun out on them and the group was able to escape, but it was clear Dallas got involved with some pretty scary people. Deer spent a couple days with Dallas one-on-one time before he was brought back home to his parents. Dallas revealed that his original plan was to off himself, but he decided that that wasn't enough punishment to those who were mean to him in life, especially his mother. He didn't want his mom to have any closure with his disappearance and thought death was too final. He wanted to torture her with worry. His plan was to reach out every 5 years and then disappear again to drive her insane. Then he reached a point where he didn't want revenge anymore. He just wanted peace and quiet away from all the stress and pressures placed on him. He said all he really wanted was to just lie in bed and read science fiction books and not worry about anything. But he knew that would be impossible for him to do, so he decided to run away and see if he could discover not just a bearable life worth living, but one that is pleasant too. Clearly that did not happen. By September 13th, 1979, he was picked up and sent home. Deer and Dallas became friends that year, and Deer would check up on him and see him and even hang out. Deer thought Dallas was getting better. He was looking better in higher spirits, laughing more, getting good care from multiple doctors. But a year later, in August of 1980, 17-year-old Dallas unalived himself on purpose with a shooty explosive boom stick. YouTube is making me censor, okay? I should just use the bleep more. It's believed Dallas was suffering because he could not come to terms with his homosexuality and substance abuse, and not because he was brainwashed or delusional from playing Dungeons and Dragons. You would think all this media about how D&D made a boy go so insane that he is now a missing person would harm the game's success and show a decline in sales. However, it had the opposite effect. Before Dallas's disappearance, the D&D basic set on average sold 5,000 copies a month, but after the media jumped onto Dallas's disappearance, linking it to D&D, by the end of 1979, they were now selling an estimated 30,000 copies a month, and it only went up from there. So Dallas's disappearance being linked to D&D actually helped sensationalize the game and made it be a huge success. So what exactly was the modern Satanic Panic, and how did it start? Many speculate that the rise of religious horror stories and films throughout the 1960s and 70s really jump-started this fear of Satan coming into the modern-day home. Movies like The Omen, where a happy couple adopts the Antichrist.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
The Exorcist, where a little girl gets possessed by an ancient demon.
Is there someone inside you?
Sometimes.
Is it Captain Howdy?
Even Rosemary's Baby, where a cult plots to birth the spawn of Satan.
He came up from hell and begat a son of mortal woman. Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
Satan is his father. God is dead!
Hail Satan!
Satan lives!
Not to mention the rise in counterculture and new religious movements in the 1960s. For example, the Church of Satan was founded in 1966, preaching witchcraft and occult beliefs. Then, the scary stories left the screen and became real life with events like Charles Manson and the Manson family, or even Jim Jones. Various Christians took these stories and movements very seriously and used them to their advantage to scare people into coming back to the church. This was a modern-day holy war for many Christians. It was commonly used as a cop-out to spread fear and hate about things people didn't want to accept or understand, like demonizing other cultures, marginalized groups, and overall prejudice and hatred for things some people just didn't like Dungeons and Dragons.
But who did this to you, gnome waiter?
I never saw his face. Just so you know, my name was Kyle.
Kyle.
He was an imaginary waiter.
I wouldn't expect you to understand.
Rumors and stories were everywhere. It was a literal witch hunt. Oh, your neighbors have a crystal collection? Don't go to church and raise chickens in their backyard? Must be satanic. I bet they sacrificed those chickens to Satan. Oh, your neighbors just immigrated to America and practice Hindu or Buddhism? Must be sent here by the devil. That kind of thing. But the Satanic Panic didn't just happen overnight from a couple movies and rumors. Here are some Satanic Panic rumors and events that helped sensationalize the mass hysteria, bringing a holy war into the living rooms of the common suburban home. First, there was the rumors of animal sacrifices. It was very popular during this time to spread rumors of animal sacrifice. This rumor mill was inspired by an issue local cattlemen in the mid-1970s were experiencing, finding their cattle unalived and mutilated. Horrified and outraged, these cattlemen made reports about these incidents through Kansas, Colorado, Montana, all the way through the Midwest up to the West Coast. That's a lot of deceased cows. People didn't know how to make sense of it, theorizing that it was UFOs, military experiments, or occult activity. These cattlemen went all out trying to protect their cattle. Some even organized armed vigilante patrols. But then, several scientific studies came to the conclusion that the overwhelming majority of these incidents were due to natural causes and a lack of education on the cattlemen's part. Everything from diseases, poisonous plants, rattlesnakes, and other typical hazards. And the mutilation was said to be bites taken from small predators. Microscopic examination of the cuts revealed the uneven marks of razor-sharp teeth, not a knife. Some statistical studies revealed that there had been no actual increase over the normal rate of cattle deaths expected in each area. Veterinarians testified that the blood of the cattle only appeared to have been drained away because it had coagulated in the animal after the animal's death. But there were a few cases that indicated knife cuts were found, indicating it was done by a human, and that was enough for people to run wild. Another popular rumor is how big and powerful companies make deals with the devil. A good example of this trope is the Procter & Gamble logo scare in 1980. The logo was a face on a crescent moon looking at 13 stars. But a rumor started going around that within the logo was a hidden 666. These rumors grew, and it started being said that the nameless owner of Procter & Gamble had made a pact with the devil. I can be your double or your angle. Had made a pact with the devil and had given a share of the company's profits to the Church of Satan. And according to these rumors, the owner also announced this on a TV talk show. Boycotts started against the company's products, and retailers actually became worried about selling Procter & Gamble's products and began refusing them. P&G vehicles were also being vandalized. By 1982, the company received 500 letters a day about its link to the Church of Satan. The rumors were too strong. By 1985, the company conceded and took their logo off all their products, and this rumor kept dying down and spiking back up for another 5 years. By 1990, the company once again started receiving 300 phone calls a day about the company being satanic. The company, desperate to know why this is happening and how this is happening, paid people to track down the source of these rumors and why they kept getting flared back up again. Their research led them to simply flyers that get handed out in churches, shopping centers, and word of mouth by Christian fundamentalists. This intense persistence to destroy a company that has done nothing but have a cool logo so the company isn't completely innocent. It's done some things wrong, but nothing satanic, okay? Like, that's all BS. But the other harmful things they've done for our environment is not. But this is a good demonstration of just how powerful the fundamentalist communication network in American society is, and how vulnerable fundamentalists are to satanic conspiracy rumors.
I regret to say, I know the powers of Satan firsthand.
Another common rumor is how Satanists are after your children. In 1980, there was a book published called Michelle Remembers, marketed as a true story based on psychiatry sessions between Michelle Smith and her psychiatrist and future husband, Lawrence Pasder, in the 1970s. She recounts repressed memories of her mom leading a dangerous cult and using her in ritual abuse throughout her childhood. The book claims lots of horrific retellings of torture, SA, and unaliving people, all at the hands of this cult and her mother. At the end, Michelle claims this cult participated in the final ritual, an 81-day ritual meant to summon Satan. However, it was interrupted by Jesus himself, the Virgin Mary, and Michael the Archangel, who saved Michelle and suppressed her memories until it was the right time to remember. This book was used by the police and prosecutors in preparing cases against people being accused of SAing children in daycare centers. The most famous case being in 1983 against McMartin Preschool in Manhattan Beach, California. And to this day in 2025, it is the most expensive trial in American history, costing $15 million. The allegations were that the kids were being essayed in the daycare center for rituals conducted by a devil worship cult. 62-year-old Peggy McMartin Bucky, her son Raymond Bucky, and 5 other child care workers were arrested. This group of 7 was accused of harming 360 children over a 5-year period. District Attorney Robert Philibosian pursued his strategy of hyping the McMartin case to boost his chances in an upcoming primary election. Unfortunately, this incredibly expensive trial did nothing to clear up the facts of the case. 7 years later, in 1990, the final 2 defendants involved, Peggy and Raymond Bucky, were found innocent. Raymond Bucky waited 5 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Juror Brenda Williams said that the trial experience taught her to be more cautious. I now realize how easily something can be said and misinterpreted and blown out of proportion. It was a literal witch hunt, and it sparked other witch hunts. In 1984 and 85 in Kern County, California, a local satanic cult rumor resulted in the investigations of 77 people. Dozens were convicted and sent to state prisons. Many of these convictions resulted from nothing but the testimonies of children, and later some of these children recanted their stories. It reached a point where in local communities being suspected meant being guilty. In Chicago, 2 women publicly expressed support for an accused person, and pretty soon after, they learned their names were added to a sex offender list being circulated by all of the local parents. While many of the accused were men, the majority were women. Now, how did this go from being local rumor to mainstream? Well, in 1985, the show 2020 aired a segment called The Devil Worshippers.
The apparent practice of Satanism, that's worship of the devil.
The first TV show to ever discuss satanic cults to a national audience.
Nationwide, we found that minor cases of satanic activity light up the map. Not a single state is unaffected.
One of the experts involved in this segment was Lawrence Pasder. You know, the guy who wrote the book Michelle Remembers. But this TV segment has a lot of historical importance because it lent credibility to what originally was just local small-town rumors, making the panic all the more real for everyone.
Almighty Satan, destroy those who love God.
Although not connected to the Church of Satan, these 12-year-old boys, with their parents' consent, demonstrated how they were taught to inflict pain on their enemies.
These stories were a goldmine. They attracted large audiences full of scared moms at home with their young children, and the ratings were through the roof. Many local journalists attracted new readers with sensationalized reports about the dangers of Satanism influencing teenagers. But no one clung to this panic more than You guessed it, the Christian fundamentalists. For many of them, this scare affirmed their belief that Satan's influence is the truth behind all of the moral corruption they see in American society today, and helped further push their Christian nationalist agenda. This resulted in a rise in traveling revivalists, attracting even larger audiences, expanding beyond the typical fundamentalist community. Because this wasn't just their battle anymore, it was every scared suburban mother's battle now too, regardless of previous denomination. The Satanic Panic gave the fundamentalists and the Catholic Church, who usually viewed each other as enemies, a common enemy to join forces over. And that would be Satan and his clutches on the modern day world, turning people away from the church.
Today we have found Satan is alive and thriving, or at least plenty of people believe he is. His followers are extremely secretive, but found in all walks of life.
And one of those evils was Dungeons and fucking Dragons. Okay, well they're not fucking the dragons. Okay, well in someone's game, they probably are. In 1982, Pat Pulling's son tragically ended his own life, and she fully believed it was driven by his involvement with Dungeons & Dragons. She turned these beliefs into a moral crusade against the game, and by 1983 created the organization BAD, bothered about Dungeons & Dragons. They just really wanted that acronym, huh? They published a list of teen smuicides who had all played D&D at some point in their lives, saying D&D was their one common denominator. They worked to get D&D removed from schools as a sponsored activity. The supposed link between D&D and Satanism was mainly linked to the terminology used in the game. Words like magic, necromancy, astrology, divination, witchcraft, wizard, hell being a place in the game, and demons and alternate gods you can interact with in the game, both bad and good. They didn't like any of that. They were like, none of that's in the Bible, so like, it's evil. Now, it would be easy to assume that Monsters and Mazes was created as an anti-D&D propaganda movie advocated by the church, but it wasn't. It was actually a movie based on a book written by Rona Jaffe, a progressive feminist Jewish woman who heard about the case of Dallas Egbert and wrote a novel inspired by it. Some of her early work is actually considered to be the predecessor and partial inspiration for the hit show Sex and the City, but this is a classic tale of the art belonging to its consumers and not the artist. As to this day, it is believed the intention of this film was to scare people from fantasy role-playing versus just being a book and movie for entertainment purposes. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something new. I know I did. If you have anything more you would like to add, please leave a comment. I love doing these deep dives for you guys, and I know this one took me a long time. I had so many setbacks, but I am working on more. I promise you I am, and I'm trying my best to get them out. I gotta push through and persevere and be strong. And I hope you have a great Halloween season. And don't forget, keep it creepy. Okay.